to let everybody know there's an opportunity when failure happens, when a moment that you are not as successful as you wanted to invest that opportunity to reap a reward.
Welcome to the Howie and Beastmode podcast, where we discuss all things business, including growth, strategy, and execution, as well as personal and professional development. Let's join Howie and Beastmode in conversation.
It's kind of like we have certain sort of personality themes, in this business relationship that we have. We tend to have emphasis, right?
Yeah.
So we tend to talk about things like feedback. We tend to talk about things like data analysis. We tend to talk about things like growth and selling and strategy and brand. There's probably like 6 things, maybe, if we had to pin it down, that we probably bucketize our conversation with. So it's not surprising that this series that we're kicking off on customer listening is kind of in that vein of like, okay, we've talked about internal feedback a lot. What's going on in the world of customer listening, customer feedback? It definitely fits the personality of the show.
Yeah, it totally does. I mean, we're going to speak on topics that we feel well versed and feel like we could speak boldly and authentically on. Listening is one of them. And it ties into feedback. It ties into so many things. And if we truly listen, it ties into much more than just customer listening. It ties into growth. It ties into strategy and ties into engagement, all of it.
Yeah, I agree. Love it. Well, that's the deal. So I think, why don't you kick off kind of the plan for tonight and then the next 4 weeks after that?
Yeah, so we're kicking off this series on customer listening, and it's not your customers listening to you. It's you, your brand, your business listening to your customers, current customers, future customers, past customers, all of the above. And really, we want to start off with a stat that we got from Chris Thinking. It says that 53% of consumers expect a brand response within an hour. So whenever they engage you, they're expecting you to respond back. They're expecting you to be listening at all times and being able to respond within an hour. Now, that's shocking. I'm sure many of you listening are saying, what the heck? No way. Number one, you're lucky if you're listening. Number two, you're lucky if you get a response. Number three, you're lucky if it's within a week, probably. And so to think that consumers are expecting that is telling you, should awaken all of us to the need to listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that's really good. And they say that people are 70% more likely to buy from you if they feel understood, if they feel heard as well. That's an old one that I heard about 7 years ago that really stayed with me. I think we talk sometimes on this podcast about operationalizing good, and this is kind of fits within that, because the customers have a lot of pain, and there's a lot of humanity that we can bring to them if we make them feel heard. Sometimes when you call a particular company to get support or complain or whatever it may be, sometimes your experience is pretty bad, and they just I think you mentioned a situation where people were just kind of following the script.
Yeah, it was terrible. We've all been there in some aspect or another, where you're calling in to one of the utility companies. They seem to be awful at it. One of the big cell phone companies, they seem to be awful at it. Or whether you're just standing at line and you're trying to just be listened to, and the person on the other end is just wanting to bypass. Okay, I heard you, next step, or just rolling you through a script, and you just want to be recognized that what I have to say, even if it's the exact same thing from the person in front of me, I'm different. I'm a different person, and so you should listen to me. We've all been there, and it's scarred me so bad to the point that a local utility company I won't even use, even though that they have rebranded themselves. It doesn't matter to me. It was so bad. And so it's just one of those things. And I just have to assume, why did you rebrand yourself? I wasn't the only one who had that issue. There's a reason why you had to change your name, you had to change your logo, you had to do all that. And it's unfortunate.
I mean, I had a similar situation with a telecommunications company. It was a group of internet, services that were spun out of Verizon that I used to have years ago. That was a high-speed internet. And I was running a website on a little server in my home, a really special little website called To Honor Them, where you could honor people who made a difference in your life. And it was a little family project that I did. It took me 3 years of work to develop it, and a lot of money. It was a big deal, but it was small in the scheme of things. It wasn't like a corporate project. But anyway, I had this this service, and they started having almost, the internet was, after Verizon sold this off to this other company, the service went terrible, like almost down, like it was almost down. And I had to, I waited for, a couple of weeks, and I tried different things. And eventually I called, and I wasn't getting any help. And I tweeted them, and then they promised to help me, and they didn't. And it ended up where I had to cancel that service, which effectively took my website down too. And it's something that I hope I can forget someday. It was such a bad memory. And how they kept promising on Twitter, which is the only way I can get a hold of them, to help me out and to fix it. But they never fixed it, and they never helped me out. They just pacified me on social media so that I didn't create a brand ripple for them online. So they just kept doing that. And I've had that happen before too, with a famous US cellular carrier that has very flashy commercials. And I was with them for a time, and the service was terrible. And they just pacified me as well. They were very, very good about social media management and Twitter listening and all that. And just kind of kept pacifying me and trying to take me into DMs to address the situation, and basically tried to blame the service slowness and weak signal on me, basically being in my area. And so, yeah, we've had these brand experiences that are terrible. But I also remember the lady that I spoke with at Verizon regarding telephone line or something a few years ago, and how she went above and beyond. I don't remember her name or the situation, but I remember how incredible she was at caring and listening. So you have a choice in your listening of either to listen and empower your employees and teach them the importance of listening, or you can have them on a script like they put Beastmode through, where he still hasn't forgotten that years ago, or my situation from years ago as well. And that's just, you have to set expectations with your employees. It's training, it's thinking about the customer listening points. You kind of have to do a survey of your business and understand, where are the possibles. Let's sit down and write down, where are all the possible points that a customer will interact with us, and make sure we have a listening post at each one of those points.
Yeah. I mean, that's that's so good. And you're gonna miss points, you're gonna miss posts, like you were saying, but at least you need to be aware. This is where we think our customers are speaking to us. I'm self-evaluating. Okay, now where are they actually engaging us at? Because we may need to shift focus. I don't want to spend all my time having somebody listen on in one area if our customers are speaking to us in another area. But this is honestly kind of getting ahead of ourselves. We're going to talk about all this, but we want to introduce the 4 areas that we're going to discuss. And so the 4 stages of listening that Howie and I have broken down is: there's before engagement, there's in the process of engagement, there's during, and there's after. And now all of these are stages of customers. So before engagement is even before we've assigned or evaluated a potential customer or client as a customer or client, right? And then there's in the process. We have identified you are a customer or client, and we're actively trying to get you to be a customer or client. There's during, you are currently a customer or client, and there's after, you're no longer a customer or client. We're going to break all of these down and spend a week We're going to spend an episode on each one of these, really breaking them down.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, looking forward to that. It's such a passion of this show is to talk about feedback and listening. So it makes total sense. We'd be, working on this from a customer and external listening standpoint. So one of the things I think we talked about covering in our prep was the psychology of listening.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
important. So
Yeah.
important.
And I have some experience with this. When my kids were little, my wife used a technique with the kids when they were upset, which was very active listening. And you really are very focused on active listening in your own life and your own business, and it's a focus for you. But she applied that to the kids, even when they were 2.5 or whatever it might be. And let's say that an example might be the little arm fell off the toy, right? And so my daughter's upset, she's crying, and she's inconsolable. And so what my wife would do is she would actively listen back to my daughter, and would say, "Are you upset because the arm came off the toy?" And then my daughter would say, "Yeah," and she's still out of control, but maybe a little bit less. And then my wife would just continuously make sure my daughter felt heard, and kept saying that back to her, like, "Does it make you sad that the arm fell off the toy?" "Yeah." And eventually my daughter was, after 3 rounds, maybe 4, she would calm down, and we could address the issue and hopefully fix the toy. And of course there could be a lesson of, well, you shouldn't throw the toy, or
Yeah.
maybe whatever, there could be a lesson, but all of that is secondary, because what she really needed originally, and that was so therapeutic, was to just be heard.
Yeah.
So that's the psychology, is just, if a customer can feel heard,
Yeah.
then they feel cared about, and then you can address whatever their issue is.
Yeah. What would happen, just thinking back, if with the same circumstance with your daughter, if you tried to just jump right to the lesson? She comes to you, arm fell off, and you're just saying, "Well, you shouldn't have thrown your toy."
Right.
What happens then?
Yeah, it was complete, taking that head-on approach like that was never, as much more pain, much longer scene, and there's not a bonding opportunity. I've blown my bonding opportunity.
Yeah. Generally, in my head, I have a 4-year-old son, and it escalates.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any better, whether it's valid or not. And oftentimes that's our approach to our customers. And again, we're both of these examples, we're talking about somebody who's actively our customer, and they're coming to us, and we're just pointing out, well, hey, you shouldn't have gone over your data. It's not my problem, or something, and it's maybe true, it may be valid, but it's not helpful in that moment.
Yeah, there's no compassion. We have talked about empathy before.
That's on the list.
It's on the list. Okay.
It's on the maybe 6 things now that you had empathy.
That's right. But I think if people don't care what unless they know that you care, is kind of the famous saying, and maybe I got it wrong, but that's the general idea. And that's really true. And there's just a lot of healing. Let's think about this too. When you go to the counselor asks you questions, and then they listen, and then they reflect back to you. And that is a known approach in therapy. It's literally that good. So the listening that we're talking about can actually be a very special bonding opportunity for you, even if the customer is really mad, or they have a problem that you can't solve right now. Who knows, all the different possible scenarios. But we know from that counselor patient relationship, we know that questions and listening and repeating it back is really like half the battle. And I can just tell you from my own perspective, I know now at this, at my stage of the relationship with my wife, that if I have an issue, a challenge at work that's causing me stress, or some other challenge, I know that if I talk to her, that I feel 60, 70% better just from getting it out. So sometimes we we're reacting and we're responding to the stimulus or whatever when that customer just needs to feel heard.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of what's triggering in my mind is, especially with social media now, and we've all seen it, whether it's on a television show or something like that, where somebody is frustrated. The person is not listening. And then all of a sudden somebody just swoops in, says, hey, I'll take care of that for you. Or, hey, you're mad because, you're whatever you want, the price isn't what you agreed upon. Well, here, I'll cover it. And in that moment, just because that person took the initiative, not my fault, but I'll take care of it, I'll handle it, that person just stole that client forever. And that's the opportunity that we have as businesses, as brands, as individuals, to capture. I mean, you can go snatch up customers all day long just by listening to them complain on social media, and be there to listen and to provide a solution.
That's good. It's a really good point.
But
there can be an opportunity to improve too. I mean, if you're listening, part of it's therapeutic by itself and relationship building because they feel heard, but then also, taking real action on that and finding out if two customers complain about the same thing and it happens a third time, there might be an operational opportunity for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the listening isn't just because we want to pacify a customer or create a therapeutic bond with them and those kinds of good things, or get the sale or whatever you're doing. And there's 4 stages like we talked about. But it's also because there's data in there. We don't want to listen. What's always good about operationalizing good is that there's 2 sides to that coin. And when you listen, when you're operationalizing good, you actually are going to be able to extract information that's going to help your business. What if the best thing that you actually had happen to you was that somebody complained so that you could fix it for 500 other people, and your competition doesn't fix it because they're not listening, and therefore you actually grow faster.
Yeah.
So extracting the listening and not just the therapy of it and giving the customer some airtime, but also taking data out of it and doing something with it.
Yeah. Or even further, your customer, not your customer, but a competitor's customer is complaining, the competitor's not listening, but you are. And so maybe you don't have access, or you don't gain that customer, but you say, I wonder if the rest of my customers feel the exact same way as this person. Maybe I should reach out and find out in advance, and there's a good.
I think I know where you're going with that.
Okay.
And I'm kind of excited, I'm actually excited, but can you make sure I know where you're going with that?
Yeah. So let's just say, we'll just use the telecom again. So somebody's complaining to their telecom about their service, et cetera, that they're not responding. But you're thinking, man, I wonder if my customers are having the exact same issue. So I can actively, in advance, before they come to me with the issue, I can reach out. Hey, is anybody having this issue? I can send out a tweet. I can send out an email. I can send out, because we talk about following up with our customers anyways, just to kind of gauge things. If I can call and say, hey, I'm just wondering if this is an issue. Yes, it is an issue. Well, that's why I'm calling you. I want to catch it before it becomes a big issue. Can you tell me about it? Now there's a totally different approach. You're now trying to be empathetic and things like that. You're not waiting for stuff to hit the fan before they call you. These are all great approaches to not only continue having a customer loyalty, but also they're going to go tell all their friends, hey, I didn't have to go tweet this. They called me,
Wow. That's a very courageous, high integrity thing to do. And larger companies or publicly traded companies or companies that are kind of in financial duress might not choose to exercise the courage that requires, because they might think that they're going to force some cancellations by bringing up a problem and by being honest about that. But I think ultimately speaking, that courage is remarkable. And if you empower your employees with that kind of courage to proactively let customers know, hey, we've had some complaints about X, Y, and Z. Are you guys okay?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty. Oh, and by the way, and also I think there's a nuance in the way you do it. I think you should have answers, not just call and check on them, but also say, by the way, we are working on that. We expect to fix by tomorrow afternoon, and we'll have a final email when this is resolved. So I think that kind of sharing and caring really does go a long way. And I like it because it reminds me of something that my company does, where I work right now at Red Canary. We have the ability when we find a security threat to basically go look for that threat across all of our customers. So it's almost a way of like in a digital way doing what you're talking about, because what you're talking about is customer A and B told me this, and we thought about it. We extracted the learning from that, and it's true. And so now we're going to go be proactive with other customers. So that's a very similar approach. So I like that a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of like scaling your awareness. But again, it takes some courage. But to reduce your risk, you're going to want to make sure to have the answer and not just let them know, but also have the solution kind of, ready in that conversation. But I love it.
So my example, as you were, expanding my thought, is a recall. So let's just talk about a vehicle. So if you're the whatever make and model that you have, if they do a recall in advance and say, hey, we found this issue, we're going to go ahead and fix your car, get you a rental, whatever, and we're going to handle it before it becomes an issue, right? There's that approach. Or it's, hey, we're just going to sit on it and see what happens, and now you got a massive lawsuit on the back end, and so there's your options. Hey guys, we know that this isn't up to our standard. This isn't the brand. This is not who we want to be. And so we're going to bite the bullet. We're going to, it's $1 billion or whatever. We're going to replace everybody's catalytic converter, right? Or you just let it go out and let everybody's, inspections fail and all that. Now you got complaints and all this. And it's just like, man, you can get out in front of it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Brand loyalty. So
yeah, that's really good. And those are great examples. That's a recall was a really good metaphorically or literally. It really is a very, very similar approach. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's I have a bad story and then a good story.
Yeah.
Actually, let me flip that. Good story, bad story. So Walt Disney World, took a family vacation a couple of years ago. I don't know. It doesn't matter what day it was. Had an issue of some kind, misunderstanding or whatever. I don't know what it was, but I tweeted him, and my brand expectation for Walt Disney World, for Disney in general, is for them to listen and care and be responsive and all that. And they did. I think they got us a free fast pass to make up for whatever happened. And so we got to go ride a ride. None of it didn't cost them anything. It was just, but it really, it meant a lot to my traveling group. And my traveling group was a lot of family members. It was probably like 10 people. I don't remember. I think 10 actually. It was 10 people. So they all got to have that branding experience from listening and all that. And then we told people. So who knows? We might have rippled out to 30 people or something. But then after that, and if in a travel season after that, we went there again and we had something happen. And because I had a good brand experience, I thought I would let them know, because maybe they would take care of us on that situation or whatever it may be. And I really didn't ask them to take care of us because it was kind of a little, it's more like I had a question. They never even got back to me. And I wasn't asking for anything free or like help us to get on a ride. It was more like asking like advice, like how should I handle this? And they didn't even respond ever. Never did. And so the problem is, like, if you're not consistent in your brand listening, my perception of Disney World now is that their brand or their service has degraded and that the Disney standard is slipping. That's what I believe now. And I don't want to believe that because we're big fans of the mouse. We're big fans of Disney. But I do worry about that a little bit, and I trust the brand a little bit less because they failed on that second chance. And so my impression, there's a psychological bias, and I can't remember what it's called, but basically like, it's sort of like the last impression is the strongest impression, is kind of the point. I think it might be called recency bias, actually.
Yeah.
And so the problem is I'm suffering with recency bias about that. And just like you are with your cable company or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And so people tend to remember whatever's last. So the consistency of listening and operationalizing good, and whether it be the therapy side of listening, where you're just showing that you care and letting them get it out, or whether you can actually maybe, and hopefully in many cases you can actually solve it as well. Or as example, in your case, of being proactive and turning the listening into a proactive outbound step. But I think if you're not consistent in all those things, people might just remember the last time you didn't listen.
Yeah. Do you remember the second story that you were sharing? Were you already at that point a Disney customer again, where you didn't say if you were there, or if you were on your way there trying to buy tickets or something, you know?
I was there, and there was a new ride that you could register for the ride at like 7 a.m. or 1 p.m. And we had 3 of us on their little app.
Yeah.
At 1 p.m. at 12:59 to 1 p.m. 3 of us were trying to get on, and none of us got on. And it's like one of the major reasons why I went to that park. And it was even on my birthday. It was like on my birthday. I mean, it was a big deal for me for this new ride. And so I just was tweeting like, guys, is there any tips on what I can do? Actually, I want to be honest. I think I did ask for a favor. I think I did ask him, what can I do? Is there anything you can do? It's my birthday. And it was my birthday. I mean, if they wanted a picture of my driver's license, I would have given it to him. But I don't think I was just asking a question.
Yeah.
I've actually deleted Twitter since then, so I don't have a copy of that. But I think I was asking for help on that. But anyway, they didn't even respond. If they would have responded, we can't help you. It's a lottery, and you guys just didn't make it. Happy birthday, and we're sorry, but thank you so much for being a customer. That would have been okay, but I wasn't even heard.
Yeah. I know it's one of the things we're going to talk about, but I just wonder if, you're already at the park, you've already invested the dollars to be there. And so I wonder if the value of who they're listening to. You said that, you had your good story, and the brand may be slipping. Again, they may be shifting their focus on obtaining new customers, as opposed to you're already inside the park, figure it out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it easily could be that, for sure.
Or it could just be an honest mistake that they missed, but yet here it is.
Here's my perception, and my whole traveling party, we grandma and grandpa didn't go that time, so it was, just 8 people were aware of our disappointment. But still 8 people were disappointed, and there are plenty of options for travel, as you know. Even during the pandemic, things are way more limited right now, but things will open up, and then there'll be a million options. So I just feel like you have to manage your social listening and all the forms of listening in your business across those 4 stages that you talked about. Number 1, before customer engagement. Number 2, in the customer sales process. Number 3, during the time they are a customer. And even number 4, after they depart and are not a customer anymore as well. Because you know what? You treat them right, they may be a customer again. Yeah.
And so again, with each one of those, we're going to talk about risk, rewards. We're going to try to get personal stories and be vulnerable and authentic with that.
Sometimes we're a little too agreeable in the way we deliver. And because we don't want to, kind of burn a bridge or make someone feel stupid or whatever,